Lapse the steering wheel here. Give me the steering wheel. Hey, steering wheel. Somebody tell him to give it to him. Come on! Whoa!
You like my bass? You like it?
How the f*** is this possible?
I'm driving like a grandma. Get that, Ralph? Did you hear me? No more radio. The rest of the race. Ralph, acknowledge. Now, come on, close him down and kill him. We've got a lunatic on the track down the hang straight.
I am so annoyed.
Boys and girls, your attention, please.
Hello and welcome back inside the Park for May for podcast number 936. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
A.K.A. Negative Camera. You know why I've asked you here.
You must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
Seriously, Todd?
Yeah, seriously. That's what I need you to do tonight. For your kind consideration, we're going to talk about Formula One news. It's not a race weekend. It is an off weekend. And you know what that means? I have to go all the way to our nation's capital, nestled in the heart of our nation's capital, near Washington, D.C. You know her, you love her, the lovely, the redoubtable.
Grace!
Oh, Grace, I got to be honest. I'm so happy you made it out of Spain. For those of you who don't know, Grace went to Spain for the Spanish Grand Prix MotoGP. When she was trying to get out, the whole country turned the lights off. And
Sure did.
and that got really dodgy. But she made it back. But here's the upside, folks. If you were a keen follower of her social media, you may have seen her and her betrothed hanging out with Johan Zarco. And they were
did.
rubbing him for good luck. You know, maybe gave him a special pendant of some amulet. Who knows?
Special hug.
I like to think Grace gave him a few pointers on how to handle the bike.
Yeah.
And
I gave him pointers.
Yeah.
I don't even ride a bike.
yeah, and because of that, come forward to this weekend,
That's it.
Johan Zarco, who's not won in MotoGP, was the first French rider to win a Grand Prix at the French Grand Prix since 1954. Grace, it's all you. It's not what Johan did on the bike. It's all you.
No, I mean, he's won a race before.
Oh,
This
has
is
he?
the second win.
Second win, sorry.
Yeah, 2 years ago when he passed Martin, when they were teammates.
Oh,
And
where was that?
Like he was, I don't know, but anyway, he was trying to he was trying to be the good number two.
Yeah.
Like I'll back up, I'll keep all these guys off your case.
Yeah,
And then,
tail gunner.
Martin, stumbled for a bit, and he was like, well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go.
I'm going to go.
And he won.
I'm going to win. That's right.
So-
I forgot.
yeah.
I forgot. Well, it's still an incredible feat. Hard to be a
Yes,
human and not
absolutely.
get
It
a
was
little
great.
choked up about that.
I was so nervous because, again, and speaking of Martin, right, that's always been one of his criticisms is that, he's great when he's, in the pack and he's fighting with people because then you're really paying attention. But when he's, out there by himself, that's when he falls over, right? That's what you always worry about is it's just, that's the hardest part is being, the Fernando Alonso are just consistent, go do it so that,
Yeah.
the X factor is never the rider or the driver, right? So just lap after lap, that kind of consistency, but that's really hard in a race. And so I'm the whole time you're just please don't fall over. Please don't fall over.
No, you didn't.
And it was pretty great.
It was
I
great.
think everybody in France was excited and the crowd noise was great.
Yeah,
So-
and kudos
they
to the
could've
French
happened to another
crowd.
guy.
They put 300,000 people at Le Mans over the weekend. It was a great
Yeah.
turnout for the event.
It was their
So-
biggest turnout ever.
Kudos to the French people, the French fans. That was great. And I know most of you are sitting home. I'm sorry, why are you talking about MotoGP? Why?
Great.
Well, because Isaac Hadjar was there. He was at the race.
There you go.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe he was the one in the Michelin Man costume waving the flag at the
He
end.
could have been. He'd make a great
Yeah,
Babendum.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
He may have been.
That guy had some great form.
Yeah, he did.
For a guy that's in a suit filled with air, he did great.
He did fantastic. Much better than those celebrities. They're like,
Yeah, I know,
But
right?
Ben was
Sometimes
in
I'm
it,
"Do you
man."
not practice this? Yeah.
yeah. He's like,
"Ooh,
he's like,
we
yeah.
won,
Every
yeah."
one of these mofo's on Michelin tires. That's right.
That's right. We won.
He was
So, yeah, it
serious.
was pretty great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like, yeah, for a person in an inflatable suit, good job.
Yeah, I agree.
waving, and we've
What
seen
better way to cheer up your day than Babindum waving a flag vigorously?
That's right.
like
I love that he's always just like sort of lurking in the background,
Yeah.
Especially at France, right? And, he's sort of always just like, hey, like the podium wants to get a picture.
Yeah.
Me too.
I love that.
Shaquille O'Neal at Austin. Yeah, I'm in this podium.
I know.
What's up?
I love it when Babindum's at the races and get the podium or the winner's circle or whatever. And he's always like trying to get in the shot, and then they'll go to a different camera and you'll see him come over in the other shot. He's like, woo, waving, and he's not as fear conjuring as the fire chicken is, in the background.
I was going to say the fire chicken, that was the worst. In IndyCar, like, what is it was frightening.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but Babindum has a happy, lovable, a certain je ne sais quoi, something French about him. I don't know. And then the fire chicken's like, "Ah!" It's like, okay, wait a minute.
Yeah. Not great.
Scary. So are your red labels. All right, Grace, we have some Formula One news to talk about. I'm just going to start right up front.
Controversy.
We've got some controversy.
I wasn't sure what we were going to talk about this week, but
Oh, I found
Formula One. You took care of that.
Yeah, I found it. Formula One delivered it. I found it. So we're going to start at the very top.
A stone unturned when Flavio was involved.
No, never.
I feel like the kids, we've been talking about, like, the kids don't know what Flavio is like. Well, they do now.
Yeah, they got a taste of him now. Yeah, it's so funny. Can I segue? Not to try to be a gatekeeper here, but I see all these influencers now who are huge F1 influencers and with their social media channels and stuff, and they're come on. Yeah, this Flavio Briatore, well, back in 2008. Look, if you're going to Google Flavio because you don't have a clue who he is, and you're going to just reread a Wikipedia page or a story, get the story right, would you, from 2008? I mean, we lived through it, all the nuance. There's more than just a blurb about Flavio in 2008. You need to read through it, and I understand, nobody talks about Pat Simmons involved in that either. He was banned too. Nobody talked about Flavio winning 2 world titles in 93, 94, and some speculation over adjustable ride height or active suspension and all that stuff. But just at least do me a favor. Just get the story right, But you can't get really a sense. I mean, the reason why we don't talk about Pat Simmons is because he isn't like that big of a personality. Like Flavio Briatore is a personality. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, he walks into a room and you know it. I don't know Pat. I mean, I don't know Flavio Briatore either, but, I don't get that sense like, who's that guy? Oh, that's Pat Simmons over there. It's like, that's Franz Toast. Oh, okay, cool. But, somebody like Flavio walks in the room and you're like, whoa, who's that guy?
Yeah. Admittedly, he's larger than life character, but these people were apoplectic that Formula One let him back in, and all of a sudden now there's this outrage about how he was banned and now he's back, and it's like, okay, but folks, Pat Simmons worked for Formula One and wrote the current regulations. Yes. Hello, right. And he was banned too.
I think that's less about people's knowledge of Flavio Briatore and Pat Simmons, and like, it's Formula One. Welcome. Like, there's a part of me that after 80-21 that was like, welcome. It's kind of like, you realize that Ferrari isn't doing so well, even though LH is there.
Welcome.
Right? Like, I don't know. What were you thinking? Like, I don't know. I mean, of course, I would like Ferrari for Charles and Lewis's sake to do well, and Fred's sake, and
wouldn't we
whatever.
all?
But it's just like, it's Ferrari.
I know. It's
so I don't know where people have been. But,
I guess for all those
Formula One runs.
For all those influencers making videos, reading Wikipedia, in order to get fully steeped in Flavio lore, because I did a video not too long ago, a short on YouTube, and I said in the podcast a few weeks ago, I said, if all of you thought Helmut Marko was bad, let me introduce you to Flavio Briatore.
Flavio.
All right. And it goes without saying, but for all of you who still haven't got together what Flavio is all about, I would encourage you to all go to Google and Google Flavio Briatore mankini. That's where you really get introduced to Flavio.
You hate people. Why do you hate people?
In detail.
Why? Don't Google that. Like, as if I have to tell you to not Google that. Never, I don't think mankini should be in any Google search. I'm not sure where that's ever going to, like, be something you want to look up. But please don't stop your car. Don't put down what you're doing. Don't pause this. Do not look that up.
Yeah. So then you'll understand a little bit more. Well, a lot more about Flavio Briatore.
There's very little you won't know at that point.
Yeah. So we're going to start with Alpine and Flav, Flavor Flav.
Let's do it.
As we called him for years. But I'm not going to start with the Calipinto move. We're going to get into that next. I want to start where there's some interesting stuff, okay?
Yeah, this is interesting.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't have an insight to it. But it was announced this past week with immediate effect that Ollie Oakes resigned 6 races into the 2025 season of the Alpine as team boss of the Alpine team.
Sure.
Now, Flavio Briatore is going to assume interim duties. The resignation reported by Autosport follows, his poor team performance and Oakes citing personal reasons, and there was some speculation. Now, when that happened, for all the right reasons, I was along with everybody else thinking, gosh, that's stunning that Ollie Oakes would immediately resign. We're thinking, well, clearly we all know that this Calipinto decision is supposed to be coming any moment. And the assumption, it's not a difficult dot to connect, is that, wow, maybe Ollie is just absolutely diametrically opposed to this move and Flavio's decision, and is like, well, if you're going to do that, I'm out of here. Now, that's a lot. Could it happen? Yeah, but your entire career in Formula One on the line because Jack Doohan didn't get to continue. I don't know how many team bosses would do that, right?
No, I just assumed that. I mean, in the same way, I just assumed it was like Flavio Briatore being like Red Bull, hold my beer. Here's what we do in Alpine, right? Like, I agree. I assumed that, whether it was, and like you're saying, like, maybe not just going to bat for one driver, but surely, just like anywhere else, like, it's never just one thing, right? Like, there's all the things that lead up to and go around to getting rid of Doohan and replacing him with Calipinto. And yeah, I just assumed it was like a hold my beer moment.
Me too.
I'll show you young huckabucks how this is actually done.
Yeah, me too.
I invented this game.
Yeah, in fairness, I didn't have any Delphic Oracle insight on this either, and I thought, wow, that's really weird. Maybe that decision is, maybe I think I said at the time there's a bigger undertow in the waters of Alpine than what we all know on the outside. Like, I tweeted that. And there is, and there was, as come to find out. But like I said, not that I was a Delphic Oracle, just making a decision that over one driver change, I wouldn't see a guy throw his head on the block.
Seems like a lot.
Seems like a lot, right?
Especially since we've always known.
Yeah.
This was always going to happen.
Yeah.
We just didn't know when it was going to happen. We knew it was going to happen.
Yeah. So I wasn't convinced it was just that. I think there was a bigger undertow. Well, 24 hours after that news broke, Flavio came out and made a statement. So, there's a lot of conversation and commentary and assumption around this resignation announcement. And he said, we have a good relationship. We get along fine. It has nothing to do with the Calipinto move or anything. It's purely for personal reasons. And as it turns out, he may be right.
He is.
Because what we found out like a day later was that Ollie's brother, William Oakes, who's 31, was charged with transferring he was apprehended and charged with transferring criminal property on Friday, May 2nd, after he was stopped and I'm reading this from, I think it was BBC. He was stopped in the Silverstone Park area in Northamptonshire on Thursday, May 1st, in possession with a large amount of cash. And he appeared before the Northampton Magistrates Court on Saturday, May 3rd, remanded in custody, end quote. So I read that 48 hours after his resignation. Like, and this is all around Ollie and Williams being part of the high-tech racing junior program.
Right.
So what is going on? And my assumption, okay, so if you I'm just total speculation, but if you're Ollie and your brother got nabbed for a bunch of cash, and whether he was doing some dirty deal or some drug deal or some, cash deal for who knows what it might be, that's one thing. Would that be worth resigning for in his role at Alpine if your brother got in trouble?
No.
I don't think so.
My brother hasn't stopped me from living my life. So.
And he's well documented offender. Yeah, no, he's not. I'm joking.
Now I'll find out if my brother actually listens.
Yeah, you will. Your brother, Grace. People know
please
me.
don't
Who
say
know
that.
you?
Yeah, please don't say those things. Right. No, but you're right.
But you know what I'm saying?
You've got to be involved.
Something's. It's not over yet. I still think there's a deeper undertow in this water, because for him to feel bad about his partner in high-tech racing and he got nabbed over bags of cash, maybe his brother was, raiding I don't know, but that seems like that would be his brother's issue. But why he would immediately resign his role at Alpine, I don't know. But I suspect we haven't heard the end of the story there.
No, unless someone at Alpine said, "This isn't. You're disparaging the team name. Get out."
Good point. Yeah,
right?
yeah. They may have said, you know what, with 2008 and all that stuff, the last thing we need is this. Okay.
Yeah, your shenanigans.
Yeah.
And we'd like you to take them elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. That could be too. That could be too.
Also closely tied.
These.
It would still be personal reasons.
Yeah, I mean, these groups, they've got ethical standards they want to live up to, and they don't need the blowback, right? Or even the
But they hired Flavio.
I know. I mean, how offended could they really be? Bags of cash. Have you seen Flavio's yacht lately? I think Bernie ended up with that on a liquidation sale.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think he did.
I mean, but you're Alpine. Now all of a sudden, Alpine's got morals. Who knew?
Yeah. Who knew?
Cool.
Yeah. Maybe
they'll have wins. Maybe that's what we'll follow next.
Right.
It's possible.
It is. Oh boy. So that happened.
Yeah.
Keep your eye on that, because I suspect, unless it happened kind of like what Grace said, the Alpine says, you know what, you are a bag of hot mess, and we don't want that right now. We're just going to part ways. Unless that happened, I suspect maybe there's more to the story. Now, the other bigger news, if that wasn't big enough, was the one that everybody was waiting on, which was Alpine confirmed that Franco Calipinto is going to replace Jack Doohan for Imola, and it's said in the presser for 6 races, the next 6 races. Mm-hmm. So he's going to replace him. 5 races. I'm sorry, 5 races. Mm-hmm. Did I say 6? Oh. 5, yeah.
Yeah. But Franco Calipinto also with his giant bags of money.
He does have backing. Of course, so does Jack, but
not the same level of backing.
Maybe not. I
don't think so.
I don't know. He may not.
I'm not saying he is Pastor Maldonado. I'm not trying to make that connection.
No.
I'm just saying that there is more than just, boy, you're a fast driver involved.
No, but
it's never enough in Formula One.
No, it's not. And I think from Franco's standpoint, he's definitely paid his dues. There's no doubt about that. I mean, he moved to Italy when he was 14 on his own. And he's done that, and he's already brought a significant sponsor to the team by just being signed there, right? So there's a lot of people behind Franco Calipinto and his success, and I would say that he acquitted himself. He had a couple moments last year sitting in for Logan Sargent or replacing Logan Sargent. So he had a couple moments that some suggest maybe cooled other teams off on him, including Williams or / Red Bull. But having said that, he did show pace and he looked really good on balance last year. I think a lot of it comes down for me. When the question comes around, gosh, is that fair to Jack and those commentary? I've defended Jack at the very beginning of the year because I felt like heading into this year with this Damocles sword over your head is not fair. These other rookies, even the Red Bull rookies, weren't didn't have that much pressure on them even before they even set foot in the car. So I thought that was pretty harsh to do. But the big question, is it fair? Well, we all know that F1 is a cutthroat business, period. And when you get a chance in Formula One, you have to excel.
Right.
Or you're out. That is the current way. And like I mentioned to Paul in the last podcast, Grace, I said, unfortunately, we're working with rookies now like Kimi Antonelli and Ollie Behrman, who are doing fantastic. So this whole, he's just a rookie, he'll need 2 or 3 seasons to get his sea legs, that's kind of gone out the window. He doesn't have time for that. And while I think Jack has done a decent job, he has had a couple crashes. And being the driver, that he is, and that Flavio, may not have been, he's not the driver Flavio really wanted. I think when you add that onto that, it all kinds of adds up to a missed opportunity, if I'm honest. And it isn't fair, but it is F1. And it's also a reminder of who Flavio is, right? So he doesn't mess around. It's unfortunate. I hate to see it for Jack. I'm excited for Franco. He's got a great opportunity. But I kind of felt like, if he gets, let me ask you this. Do you think if he gets in these next 5 races, has a couple crashes, finishes behind Pierre in the next 5 races, think they'll swap him back?
Ooh. It has to be, at some point, that has to be more effort than it's worth for the rest of the team. Now, maybe somebody like Flavio, somebody that's high up in the food chain doesn't care about that. But, every change, it's not as if it's a zero, like you have to change the seats and the cars and the blah, 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 and you have to get used to a new driver. There's so much cost with any time you change something like that, most teams don't do it ever during the season unless you're Red Bull. Let alone twice in one season. That seems like I think that's also admitting that you're wrong, and I don't see that happening either, right? Because if you go back to Jack, then you're saying, we made a mistake, and and Franco wasn't as great as we thought, or Jack was better. This isn't a pageant or something like that where you're just trying to see who's better, and that's who you're going to pick, right? And they don't. And I get it that they don't have as much testing, which I do think also impacts. If you think of if somebody like Kimi Antonelli, we'll go with, generational talent, right? So him as a rookie is going to be different than other rookies. Yeah. And if you remove that, but where do you see that? They just don't have as much testing as they did, 20 years ago, 10 years ago to really get them up to speed in a car. In a current car, yeah. Long story short, I think the answer is no, I wouldn't. Yeah. Because I think that's just too much cost. Yeah. I think you have to make this change once and live with it, and you would be admitting that you were wrong, and nobody ever wants to do that. But they might do it anyway because I don't know. It's Alpine, and Flavio seems to be just doing what he wants. Again, Red Bull, hold my beer. I invented this game, and it won't surprise me. Right. I guess that's my final answer. Would I do it? No. Will it surprise me if it happens? No, not at all. Right. Yeah, that's a good answer. I suspect we'll see Franco for the balance of the year, and I think Jack will be relegated into their reserve driver program in perpetuity until he can find another ride elsewhere. It's kind of my hunch. I hate to say that, but... Yeah, and they'll send him out to do the PR and that kind of stuff. Yeah. I mean, again, he's still really very good at that, and it's still an asset to the team. Yeah. Even if he's not in the seat. Right. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, great news for Franco. Wishing him the best. He's a pretty handy driver. I think it's great. For the same reason I think Kimi's great. It's great to see an Italian back on the grid. It's been forever since we had an Italian on the grid. And it's great to see somebody from Argentina back on the grid. I think it's great. That's right. Very excited about that. Yeah. Well, in other news... and again, this is like, am I surprised? No. Will I be surprised that they make it to the grid? Yes. Yeah. All right, good. Yeah. I'm ready. I know. It's in other news...
What the hell?
I know it is. So Audi
what the heck?
F1 has reorged again.
Gosh.
Are you
Okay,
is your
cool.
is your head spinning on how many times this group has reorganized and they haven't even
Have they
started
made it
racing
onto the grid
yet?
yet?
It's amazing.
Nope.
Yeah, it's
And they're just collecting them all, right?
I
How
know.
much talent do they have in that team now? And we're fixing things again, right?
I know.
Okay.
It's like they got the world's largest shop back on in the paddock, just sucking people up. I don't know what's going on over there. Kudos to Audi,
I
but
don't know. It just
they've reorged again, folks.
okay.
Now, here's what you got to keep track of now. You remember, Ferrari got tired of Matteo Binotto. They parted ways with Matteo. Not even a year ago, they hired Sauber/Audi, hired Matteo Binotto. Now, he was previously listed as the chief operating and technical officer. But now he's been made head of Audi F1 project. While the chief executive officer, Adam Baker, has left the building.
Okay.
Gone. Now, you'll recall, like I said, less than a year ago, they hired Binotto and they removed Andreas Seidel, who they hoovered up from McLaren.
Right.
Remember?
That's right.
So they lured Andreas over, got him over there and said, oh, we don't like the cut of your jib. And then boom, Andreas, you're a nice guy. Glad we got you out of a McLaren.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is Mattia is now available and he's a smart guy. And you're a sharp cookie too, but take a hike. And he did. Then they hired Jonathan Wheatley from Red Bull.
Yeah,
And
that's right. Jonathan.
yeah, and they're saying that Matteo is in this role, and the commentary from the team was that the CEO role had become obsolete. Now, I find this an interesting talking point because a few years ago, well, for many years, folks, if you're new to F1, for many years the team would had the team boss, Ken Terrell,
Right.
team boss, Colin Chapman, team boss, right? That's the way it was.
Right.
And then you have all the people that work for the team boss and the head of race and race engineers and all of that good stuff and head of aero, all that kind of stuff. But then there's team boss. So a few years ago, may have been when Mercedes was getting all successful. Somebody decided,
Okay.
I was going to say something else, but I won't.
I liked getting all successful.
Yeah, when they're getting all successful, somebody, whether it was Mercedes or another team, McLaren or somebody, decided that, we need to start taking ourselves more seriously as a team. This whole old notion of, there's Frank Williams and he's the team boss and then everybody else, works around Frank and this is great. But we're professional, damn it. And they are. They are professional teams. I mean, there are 1,000 or 2,000 people working for these teams. So they started thinking, if we're going to basically become the size of a small corporation, maybe we should start acting like a corporation. So they brought in the CEO role and the CTO role and all of this stuff. And then everybody started moving towards that sort of arrangement.
Right.
As they looked at these individual roles and how that corporate structure might benefit these race teams, right? Fair play. But I'm curious now if Audi feels that the CEO roles is pretty much obsolete, at least for them. I'm curious now what other teams, will they see these restructuring into the C-suite and the CEO roles and that kind of thing sort of irrelevant? Will they kind of move back to, right now Alpine's been ran by Flavio. He's the team boss, right? You got Andrea Stella running McLaren. You've got Fred Vasseur running Ferrari. And I know there's structures around them and executives around them, but you get my point. I wonder if they'll go back to where it's one main guy, like the old days, or if they'll continue with this sort of C-suite of corporate overlays, meaning that, a team boss actually reports to the CEO, who reports to the CEO, or the COO reports to the CEO, and that kind of thing. I don't know. I just think that was interesting. Maybe a throwaway comment.
They have to have. it's if you think about his roles.
Yep.
Right. I mean, I guess whether you call him a CEO or a team boss, I mean, certain things have to get done, right? Like somebody has to show up on this podcast and say some pithy stuff, and then somebody has to, weave all that pithy stuff together and spend hours on the back end making sure that we have a podcast, right? Somebody's got to do all these things. Most of them are you. And whether I call you the CEO or the team boss, you're still the person that's doing all that lifting, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess in some ways, maybe it's just if it's by committee versus just one person. But even I'm not sure Flavio really just operates as a benevolent dictator. I mean, certainly he has people that he talks to or listens to because he's not a technical guy, right? He's not necessarily a racer. He's a business guy. So I don't know. I wonder how much of that is I don't know, like I guess a corporate structure, but you would still need somebody. Somebody's the coach. Somebody is the front office. Somebody is the person getting the talent. Somebody is like, all these things have to exist regardless of what you call them or how you structure your organization. So
yeah, I agree. I would think, like in Fred's case, he's trying to manage the team, but Fred wouldn't have any time to do what a CMO would do. You've got to have a chief marketing officer, work with your sponsors, work with those relationship building, and they have whole departments. Yeah, I've said this before, but I spent a lot of time with Stefano Lai at Ferrari, who was the head of brand, and he kind of explained that structure too. So I personally feel like that structure sort of makes sense when you can take some of those real key elements of a team like Mercedes or McLaren or Ferrari or even Red Bull. When you take those key elements and you put those with professionals that have been doing that particular thing, and I think that was the very legitimate reason of why they kind of moved to that. Because if you think about like McLaren, Zach is, his whole background, for those that don't know, is he built a marketing juggernaut company called Just Marketing, but he sold that. And he's fabulous at marketing. He's terrific at it. And I'm sure he has a hand in closing the big sponsorship deals and that kind of thing. But he has a marketing officer that does most of that nurturing and most of that sponsor and development and business development for opportunities, right? So because he couldn't possibly do all it himself. So I'm just curious why Audi felt that the CEO role was obsolete in this situation. So, and it seems to me it's very un-Audi, if you know what I mean. Audi's pretty structured. Yeah, right. No, you're right. That is the end of that sentence. They are a very structured corporation, but I just think this, to me, again, this doesn't make me feel confident that they're going to show up on the grid. Right? This to me is just more like they just keep getting more people, and every time they get more people, they make more changes. You haven't even shown up on the grid yet. What are you making all these changes for? I know. It is unnerving.
It's fascinating
when the leadership structure of your team has already gone through one or two cycles, and you haven't even raced yet. It's a little.
And these are the people we know about.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so I know who Jonathan Wheatley is.
Yeah.
I'm sure that the 40 people underneath him, I don't know who they are, right? So how much other restructuring is happening because it doesn't involve Bonato or Seidel or Wheatley, people whose names I know, right? How much other people have been moved around and doing different things. And again, this to me doesn't make me feel confident that they're going to show up on the grid. They're closer. This is the closest they've ever been, so I'll give them that.
I know.
But
they're dangerously close now.
Believe it.
So anyway, we'll see what other kind of reorgs they do before they actually hit the track. That should be interesting. This is a very interesting story, if not, if not
controversy.
This is I love this. This is great.
I know, this is
like
a good story.
A good story.
It is.
I love it.
So you're all familiar with Carlos Sainz, right? I mean the Carlos Sainz, not Carlos Sainz Jr., not Williams driver Carlos Sainz, not former Ferrari driver Carlos Sainz, not the 10 out of 10 my daughter ranks Carlos Sainz, right?
He's a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, my daughter's quite smitten with him. No, not that Carlos Sainz. This would be the older Carlos Sainz Sr. Well, it seems that Carlos Sainz Sr. has had enough. and he is eyeing a possible FIA. Yeah, he's put his foot down. He has, he's
I've had it.
he's a very fit Spaniard, and he could put his foot
On top
down.
of the fact that, he comes from WRC. Like, I don't pay as much attention to WRC as I wish I could, right? But there's all this shenanigans we talk about with Ben Silliam. That shenanigans is happening over there too, where he's also in charge of their series, right? This isn't an isolated just Formula One that he's getting involved in. So I could see that too, that he's just like, this is too much. Not only are you messing around with Formula One, but like WRC and all these other series that the FIA is also in charge of. I've had enough. Yeah, and just not to overblow this, but for those of you who knew that Carlos Sainz's dad, Carlos Sainz Sr., was a race car driver, rally car driver. Yeah, that's cool, whatever, because you're absolutely, eyes are glued on the son because he's a dashingly handsome young man. Understandable, completely understandable. But if you didn't know, Dad's a big deal.
His dad is a living legend, okay? He's a rally driver who is incredible, all right? So, yeah, he's an incredible driver. He knows what's going on, and he still races and still wins. He's an incredible guy. Quite a story. Yeah. So is it any wonder that his son's a good F1 driver? No. So Carlos is considering running for president of the FIA, Motorsport's governing body, in this coming December's election. Now, the 63-year-old two-time world champion told Motorsport.com that he was, quote, in the process of figuring out how much support I will get in the community of motorsport. Had to Motorsport.com. So Carlos Sainz Sr. said this, this possibility has been in my mind for some time now, not very deeply, but now I think it could be the right time in my career for me to take the step. I'm confident I can do a good job and put together an excellent team to give back to the sport part of what it has given me. I have accumulated a lot of experience in this sport throughout the years, and I'm certain I can bring new and interesting things to strengthen and develop the sport in the automobile world. Okay. So let's just recap. Yeah. You and I have talked about this. Well, we've talked about FIA presidents for years, but it's all the way since Max Mosley days, early Max Mosley days. Right. But if you're newer to F1, for you veterans out, you'll know this is just a good reminder. But for you newer fans to F1, this is just kind of a reminder. I don't mean this isn't me trying to be a know-it-all or heavy-handed. I just want to remind you of this. It's that the key here is that the member clubs of the FIA are who vote. And this is what Max Mosley and Jean Todt were so good at, greasing these small clubs for votes. I mean, we're talking about the smallest clubs from very small countries all around the world, but they have one vote just like AAA or DAC has in Germany, right? So even these small little clubs who wouldn't take a lot of money to make them happy or to grease them a little bit for a vote, right? And this is, I'm not suggesting that happens. Nod, nod, wink, wink. Okay? I'm just saying. And this is what Max and Jean were so good at. You've heard me say also that the stewarding issues that really frustrate you about the lack of consistency over the stewards and the lack of interest the FIA seems to have in standardizing a stewarding program or a consistent crew, and you get really upset about that. Well, the reason that's not happening is because these small and even large clubs are offered these stewarding positions for select members of their clubs as a perk,
the reward,
and also as a vote getter, right? So these are the perk or the reward for being a member of the FIA, is that if there's a Formula One race or a race that comes to your country or whatever, you're going to have some of your esteemed members in good standing as guest stewards for that race. All right. That's why we don't have a consistent regular stewarding crew that go around, right? Or we hadn't.
Could you
for years.
imagine that in like football or something?
No,
like that?
no, you couldn't imagine that. And I know they've got
Like, what?
the remote crew now that watches and all that, but the actual stewards, and they have the guest steward.
It's still hokey.
It's still hokey.
There's no way around
folks.
that. They can paint that however they want.
Yeah.
It's super hokey, right?
It's still hokey.
You voted, so you get to be a guest steward. Is hokey.
It's still
right?
hokey.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Right, like because there's rules.
Yeah.
I mean, like who knows all these rules? I sure.
And I
don't.
wanna
People
say-
just like this thick, right?
And any of you out there, if I got this wrong, correct me, for you veterans out there that know. I want to say that it was always 3 race stewards, and the big thing was they ended up doing one of them as a guest or as a former driver. So that took away one of the positions. I think it was always 3, and it was 3 of the member club members as stewards. But I think now with the guest driver, it takes one of them. So that's why you don't have that. Now that adds a complexity to any election. But my hunch is this. There's a couple things to think about this. Now, Mohammed bin Salim, or I call him MBS, it's easier.
Yeah.
MBS can we just be brutally honest? He's been shambolic, all right? And completely miscast for this play. He isn't qualified to run a group like the FIA. I'm sorry. I'm sure maybe he's a delightful guy. I don't know, but yeah, on the job qualifications on the application, he didn't have several of those under the qualifications. So he's miscast for the play, and despite his strong backing from member clubs, each club has 1 vote. Now, don't forget that it's hard to ignore the Middle East's footprint on Formula One. And one presumes that the teams that, if you talk to the teams, it's clear the drivers want MBS out of there. The teams want MBS out of there. Formula One and Stefano want him out of there.
Yeah.
He's shambolic.
That's right.
Right? But keep in mind that some of these teams are majority owned by Middle Eastern investment groups. And those groups may want MBS in there, right? They may want him in place there. So there's an element along with them and maybe even Middle Eastern sponsors, who are on there, Gulf Air or whoever it might
He's going to
be.
have their back. He's going to keep their interest.
He will.
Right.
He will. He's from the Middle East, and they they probably like that. They probably like that representation.
And they may not necessarily care that he's like, you can't say the F word, or
Yeah,
you can't have
whatever.
piercings, or that stuff may whatever.
Whatever.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think the things that we as fans see as and the drivers for sure, like the drivers are the ones that actually have to deal with this on a daily basis as they're
Right.
trying to do their job, right? They're going to be worried about things that, again, those motor clubs aren't worried about. They're just worried about, is he out there doing what I want him to do?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like, it is like the commissioner in football, right? He works for the owners. He doesn't work for us as fans, right?
Right,
so
right.
Goodell does what the owners want him to do. So it's the same thing, right?
Right.
They don't have to worry about these things that we get.
And we're not insinuating they want him to do anything nefarious. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that he's representing their
It's his
investments and their
interest,
interests, right? And their sponsorship interests. He gets sponsors or race promoters or potential race audiences with the right people in Formula One.
It's just following the money.
Follow the money.
Right?
Exactly.
And I think it's the same thing with Goodell. People get mad. They're like, why would he do these things? Because he works for the owners. That's following the money. The owners pay for
Follow
it,
the
right?
money.
So, no, that his interest is going to be different. So
Yeah.
his interests are being paid by those motor clubs, not by the drivers. That's not...
Right. And the reason I got all into this was when Max Mosley was stepping down, the FIA president came down to between Jean Todt, who Max Mosley was heavily leaning on his relationship with the member clubs, almost some argued at the time unfairly and potentially not legal by what he was doing to try to get Jean Todt the role. And he was up against another famous rally driver named Ari Vatanen.
Yes.
And so years ago, I did a podcast interview of Ari Vatanen during that election. Mm-hmm. And he was running against Jean Todt. It was incredible. And Ari couldn't have been a nicer guy. He was on the other side of the planet for me when he set up the call, and I called him. It was some weird time of the day for him. And he was just I don't know him personally, but I will tell you guys, he was a delightful guy to talk to. It was a fun interview to do, and I learned a lot about this process. And even he was pretty candid, with what he thought was going on in wooing and greasing these little member clubs of these little nations with, 20 people that belong to the club, and they go down there and throw him a few quid and buy him some free, things or new brake pads or whatever it was. And that club is elated, that's a great deal for them, and you'll get our vote. And so he was very candid about the behind the scenes in the election process. So anyway, I know that happened. Now that leaves one major question. While the teams may want to change, investors in those teams may not, as I said earlier. And the teams don't have a say in this process anyway. But they can certainly voice an opinion. And will we see any of these teams saying, oh, yeah, I think it would be great for Carlos. Carlos is a well-respected, hardened racer. He's a champion. He knows racing. Yeah. Will we get those kind of comments from the teams? Because I personally believe every single team in there wants MBS out. And
I think that's...
If you pin Zach to the wall, I think he would tell you that he would want MBS out. Whether he says that publicly may depend on his majority investor, who's from the Middle East. So it'll be interesting to see. Yeah. And the other element, and I'm not knocking Zach, it is what it is. But the other question is, can Carlos get enough of the member clubs to support him despite the politics and money? I guess time will tell. But I am all for it because I believe the FIA needs a serious reformation.
I mean, I think it's just, you can see just even the small snippets of like the body language of the drivers around MBS.
Yeah, they shove him away. They don't want to.
He seems like he's like the thunder chicken. The fire chicken,
he's like the fire chicken.
Awkwardly always.
He is.
Right? You want him to be the Michelin man. No,
I know. He's not.
It's not his role. He's always just like sort of weirdly lurking around somewhere. And you're like, why are you here?
Yeah.
And he's definitely the guy that like goes to the handshake and he's like, never mind.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so I just think that was, so I think that's clear. I don't think anybody's shy about that one way or the other. And so I think that, and I think the thing is, though, is that Carlos Sainz brings name recognition to it.
Yeah, he does.
A lot of respect
to
it.
Well
in
respected.
a way that Ari Vatanen isn't necessarily as known to everybody.
Not as known as Jean Todt was, right?
No, not, right? And it's hard, again, to look at what Jean Todt did with Ferrari and then say, well, I don't know if he can cut the mustard as the FIA president, right?
Yeah.
So I think that what Carlos has, though, is a lot of race experience and name recognition, but maybe not the behind the scenes working stuff like Jean Todt did.
Right.
But some of it also depends on how they want to work it. I mean, we've talked about that here, right? Like Jean Todt was very hands off on this kind of like Formula One stuff, and really, you'd see him in the pit lanes, but you really didn't hear about him the way you hear about MBS all the time, everywhere.
Yeah.
So
see, and I think
it could be that too.
Jean Todt parlayed. He spent most of his time really kind of building a CV for post-president where he could still remain on the world stage and do these charity events and get an income and a revenue and sit on these boards. And, he really did that real well and played that real well. And you don't see MBS doing the kinds of things for the FIA road safety, the FIA mobility program. You don't see him at all of these different places. Like you'd see Jean Todt in the press all the time. He would be in Taiwan promoting this, or he would be in, Egypt doing this, or Morocco sponsoring this, or, whatever it was, or Moldavia or whatever. But you don't see MBS doing any of that. And I do think Carlos would. I think he would represent the FIA as the organization as it intended to be, and I think he would hire somebody to run F1. That would be my guess.
Yep.
So we'll see.
And Jean Todt has Felipe Massa as a second son, which, MBS does not.
Right. MBS doesn't have that.
You can't do that.
MBS drove a Formula One car for about 300 feet and hit the wall.
Well, I just think there's and again, I think Jean Todt, just has he's like a picture of like soft diplomacy. I mean, nobody thinks he's a pushover. Nobody's like, oh, we'll just get what we want. No, but he's also not so in your face or like so abrasive, right? So I think, he always really had the same way at Ferrari, right? He really just was like, here's what we do, here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to get the best people to do these things, and then my job is to keep all this other muckety muck from, getting in my people's way. That's what I'm here to do. Right. And that's what he continues to do. So but yeah, MBS, I think everybody said enough.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's all these rally guys. You had Max Mosley, who was a barrister or a lawyer, and then here comes Jean Todt. He was a rally guy. That's where he got his start as the navigator for a rally, successful. Up against Ari Vatanen, a rally guy, right? And he comes in. MBS, his claim is a rally guy. I haven't looked up his record in rallying, but I don't even know where he raced. But, rally. And now Carlos Sainz. So it's all these rally guys. Who knew?
Maybe it's like hockey goalies, right?
Yeah.
It's a different brand of people.
Right.
And so therefore, there's like to them, they're like, yeah, I can do this. We'll do this. Whereas, maybe the Formula One guys are like, well, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm going to go retire on some beach somewhere. Thanks for asking.
Right. All right. Let's see. Another news this week. Cadillac launched their F1 team at the Miami Grand Prix. They announced the 2026 F1 entry at a launch party in Miami, hosted by Motorsport.com. That was supposed to, build the brand and boost the appeal of Cadillac or General Motors, being a GM-backed team coming to Formula One, right? And, it's supposed to be a very polished, very slick thing. Although I'm not trying to be harsh here, and I don't want to dwell on this, but I was a little surprised at the overall communication of this, including the president's own LinkedIn post, which seemed to be written by an intern. I'm sorry. It was really junior league. And I'm surprised, even the video, I don't know. I'm just surprised that a program as large as this had such a mid feel to it. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Like they were surprised. Like all of a sudden it was Tuesday and they're like, oh shit, we got to get this on LinkedIn.
Exactly. It's like, oh crap, we should probably put a video together. Hey, has anybody got Final Cut Pro?
Hey, you got an iPhone, right? We can do this.
Hey,
cinematic view. We got
it. Do you have that CapCut app? We could do it on that. Yeah. I don't know. Exactly. It's weird. Anyway, I won't dwell on it.
I don't know.
I won't dwell on it. I'm happy they're coming. Don't get me wrong. I'm super happy for them, and I'm excited about the team and all that. So I'm not peeing in their Cheerios.
I just hope they can up their game. Like this was just a one false start, right?
Yeah, get behind it.
They'll be better.
Yeah, do better, be better.
I mean, look at Audi. What
Cadillac hasn't had that many work changes yet. So,
right.
Speaking of Miami, I did want to mention that Miami did extend its F1 contract to 2041, which I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the longest contract on the F1 calendar now. That's pretty great. And they did a great job. It was a good race. Great job to Miami and the Miami Grand Prix and all the men and women down there working their tail off to make that happen. So good job to all of them. Yeah. It was a great job. Yeah. And then I wanted to talk about this. This is kind of an interesting thing. I saw this article over at Auto Sport, and it was Red Bull's faces tire management challenges, which is really their Achilles heel, that their Pirelli tire management were really highlighted with the McLaren's dominance, led by Oscar Piastri. It kind of exposed Red Bull's pace deficits to McLaren. Max wasn't able to really match their full distance pace for sure. Finished well off the pace of both McLarens. And they were talking, the article went on to talk about, Red Bull really need to get on top of this for the 2026 and really, get on top of their tire management, because that really does seem the difference, where the Red Bull over one lap in qualifying might be on pace and can hang with the McLaren, no doubt, but the race pace just clearly isn't there, and it's basically down to tire management. Now, I found this interesting because it brings up an interesting, if not controversial, issue in the paddock about how McLaren are able to reach the peak performance window of the tire, any compound, and then remain in that window for the rest of the race. While all the other teams seem to struggle with this, right? Red Bull set up. We've got, infrared heat pictures showing the tires are cool in the brake area. Everybody else's tires are hot. They suggested that they're using some sort of water on these to keep the system tires or wheels cool. Others suggest that they're using some PCMs or phase change materials inside of the brake housing, which absorbs and dissipates heat through melting and then solidifying, which is a brilliant innovation if that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic.
And I've learned a lot about phase changing materials. I was like, I had never heard of this. And now it's like in jackets, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Yeah.
Who knew?
I think 80% of Paul is a phase change material, if I'm honest.
And that is probably true.
Yeah.
Especially the part that slams down his laptop when he's done at the end.
Yeah,
right?
that's exactly right. He was a little laptop
He's cool
slamming
off,
this
he's got the
weekend at Laguna. Did not go well for him. I feel bad for Paul.
did not.
I was watching the race, and Tom and I were having this whole text message, and usually when I text Paul, even when it's in a race or whatever, in Facebook chat with Tom and all three of us and kept texting. Every once in a while, he'll come up for air. He'll give us an update from the inside. But this entire race, it was just. And I knew Paul was busy and not happy, so I chose to leave him alone, and wisely so. But anyway, yes. If it is PCMs, it's a brilliant, innovative use of it and how they're doing it. The fact is, McLaren seemed to be able to get to the window as quick as the other teams and yet remain in there for the duration of the race, and that's brilliant as long as it's legal per the regs, right? And it's something, and if it is legal, let's just for the sake of argument assume they're using some sort of PCM material inside that. And as the heat comes off those brakes, they absorb that heat and dissipate it as they melt. And so if that's happening and the FIA deemed that legal, the other teams are going to have to really jump on top of something like that. Although I got to think that that's not an overnight kind of thing. It's not like going out and getting some styrofoam. Here, let's just stuff some of that in there. Yeah, that'll make it better.
Some Flex Seal will make a submarine.
There, good. Yeah.
Done.
So I think it's going to be really difficult for other teams if that's legit what's happening. They're going to have to get the materials. They're going to have to test them. What consistency of those materials have to be with the amount of heat that their car's giving off.
They would have done it by now, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
So the fact that they haven't means that, they're like, oh.
Right.
Okay. And there's plenty of videos out there, right? That's how I was like, what? I've never even heard of this.
Yeah,
so
right.
There are plenty of YouTube videos that you can scour around and look at and, at least get some idea. Because, again, none of us actually know what they're doing. This just is, the current, theory du jour. So,
yeah. No, I had read about it.
Interesting.
And then I was looking around online. I read about PCMs and I was looking around online. Kudos, and I can't remember the gentleman's name. Really nice guy. I'm sure I don't know him. I'm sure he's a delightful guy. And he does great content. The channel's Driver 61, but I don't know the gentleman's name. I'm sorry. I don't know. I should know that, and I don't, and I apologize. But delightful guy, does great content. I always think he's, really super good content creator. Anyway, and he had a video on this, and I found it terrific. Thought it was really good.
Scott Manzel.
There you go. Thank you. Apologies, Scott. I'm so sorry that I didn't remember your name. However, why do I feel bad? He didn't know I exist. He didn't know my name. So anyway.
Well, no, but you knew Driver 61, right?
I did.
That's how I know him, too. I had to look it up. I'm like, I forget what his name is.
Yeah.
I always have to ask Flip, and he knows.
Right.
So I looked it up.
So there you go.
Because that's also how I've been encoded.
Yeah, so watch this space, because I think this is a real sticking point to this season in general. When you think about the pace of the Mercedes, the pace of the Red Bull, and the pace of the McLaren, and even you could argue maybe the Ferrari to some point, but I think this window, it's why over some of the, why Kimi Antonelli can put it on pole for the sprint, right? Or why George seems to qualify, he qualifies really well, or, why Max could put it on pole and then yet drift backwards in the race. And that, so this is kind of this dynamic and this advantage that the McLaren has to get to that window. And they talk about, Lando alludes to just how tricky the car can be to drive at times. And it's almost now, when you think about this PCM as a possibility, about getting it to that window. And sometimes if they go over that window a little bit and it catches them off guard, or, that they expect it to be in the window and providing grip for the rest of the race, and all of a sudden it's not there, or whatever. It's it's a fascinating topic that I think will develop as the season goes on. Hey, then sad news. Jochen Mass passed away. Very sad. He's a F1 and Le Mans veteran. Great guy. Passed away May 7th, age 78, from German Autosport in Germany, said from stroke complications. So it was very sad. Our condolences to the Mass family and friends and family. He had 105 F1 starts and Sauber Mercedes success. Anyway, motorsport icon. Been around a long time, so I hate to see that when we lose someone from the motorsport community. Yeah. So our deepest condolences to all the family and friends. Okay, let's lighten it up, shall we?
Yeah.
Shall we do some Alvin's Cats?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Oh, yeah.
Get in there, Lewis.
You bet. Uh-huh.
Have it, Tom Cruise!
Yes.
Hey, smoked up, Johnny!
What do you got for us, Grace? You want?
All right. Well, I got lots of stuff.
Yeah, let me take a guess. Has something to do with MotoGP.
That's there, but that's not even my first story.
Sweet.
But that is in there.
Okay.
So my first story, at first, I feel like I should give some apologies to the Miami GP. I dog them at every turn. I am not a fan of Miami. I wish that Miami wasn't on the calendar. When they said, oh, they've signed Miami until, 3047, I was like, really? Miami? Why? Why have we signed this track for so long? And then this weekend happened. It was a great weekend. The Lego cars were great.
They were awesome.
We should have the driver's parade should always be in Lego cars.
I agree.
And it should just be Lewis Hamilton, from Lewis Hamilton's perspective, because he has that. I had the Muttley is the dog, but he has that Snidely Flash's dog Muttley, that that laugh that he has. It's just pure joy. But but even Lance Stroll looked like he was enjoying himself.
Lance, of all people, looked like he was having
a wider
fun.
smile there.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody was. Just
and Pierre Gasly was almost in cardiac arrest, laughing so hard.
So funny.
Yeah, it was great.
So I just think
that's a great brand activation right there. It's fabulous branding.
We should just scrap the whole thing. Everybody had such a great time. Let's just run in Lego cars. Save everybody a lot of money.
The hell with PCMs. Let's just do Lego cars, Lego.
And
then I was thinking, after the race, you wouldn't even have to clean the track up. You just have all the local kids come in and pick up all free Legos.
Send the kids out.
Yeah.
That's right.
Free Legos.
It's win-win.
It's win-win.
So, I just thought Miami, we talked about when they did the weird driver intros with LL Cool J, and that was everybody was very awkward except for LH. And I was but the Lego cars was great, and the race was great, and I enjoyed all of it. So apologies, Miami. Maybe your track being extended to 3047 is okay.
Yeah.
And it will be okay.
Maybe 2078 when Pluto makes its first orbit of the sun.
Maybe I'll stop, saying that, sprint races only happen at the boring tracks in Brazil.
Yeah, right.
Maybe I'll say it only happens at the boring tracks except for Brazil and Miami.
Right.
Maybe that's in your future. But
the only thing I missed this race was Ted going up the down escalator. I kind of missed that.
Never again. I think I always have noticed now that they always have people standing there, and I'm sure they're just looking for that guy.
I know, they're looking for Ted.
They don't know who he is. That guy that ran up
some British guy.
What are you doing, sir? I don't know, but Ted was also on point in Miami.
He was.
That was great. His just I guess it's the jet lag. I don't know, but his just natural, just rambling and wandering was on point this weekend as well. So It was some peak Ted, where you're just like, I don't know. And then he gets to a break and he's like, what was I talking about? I don't know. I have no idea what you were talking about, but I'm here every week. So it was pretty great. So Miami, thanks for putting it together.
Yep.
And here's to a few more. Don't be hungry. Be great. Hungary, who should only be on the calendar because it's the only track that McLaren is guaranteed to do.
Yes, that's right.
I don't have to worry about that as much now either. But there for a long time, that was the only track I could count on McLaren doing well. That was it. So we got to keep Hungary on there because those days will come again, I'm sure. So I did want to talk, of course, about MotoGP, and I did want to give a shout out. We were able to. So we went to the race in Jerez, which, first of all, walking around that track. So I walked around Austin. We went the first year with Paul. That's a big track.
Yeah, it was a big
took
track.
A long time to walk around. Jerez is like, because it all like folds
in on itself.
I'm
yeah.
like, all tracks should be this short. We walked around it. It was like, wow, there's some big elevation changes for a lot. But it was just like, oh, this is not so bad to walk around the whole track on a Friday and kind of scope everything out and see where all the like fan stands were. And so that was really fun. But yeah, I recommend it. Walk around a track at Jerez. Don't try to walk around Austin. It's a lot bigger of a track in that sense. We had the privilege of sitting in on David Emmett and Adam Wheeler and Neil's podcast, which is Podcast Pass. So I highly recommend their podcast. Is great, and it was great because I feel like I know that you've met David.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I talk to him all the time, so it was nice to like in person be like, here we are, right? So we got a great time with them, and then they also brought in. So MotoGP, they have Red Bull Rookie Cup, which is great. I feel like I'm about to recommend everybody watch more racing, even though I myself have no space to watch more racing. But if you have more space in your life, watch some more racing. The Rookie Cup, which is not something that was ever really on my radar until this event, when we got to meet Carter Thompson, who's an Australian rider, and Christian Daniels. They're all like 16, they're all young kids. Christian Daniels from LA. Him and his father live in Barcelona. But we were able to, we're a group of like 20 people, and it was really cool to get to meet them and be the only Americans talking to the other Americans in a sport where there's no Americans anymore. So it was really great to get to talk to Christian and to Carter. And then Carter won the second race, and then Christian came in third. So that was great to watch that we were there.
Yeah.
And then we got to see him after the race and again for dinner. So, and I'm pretty sure that now Flip and Christian Sr. are like bonded for life. They're like new best friends, and because they found out they had a lot of overlaps in their work lives as well.
Oh, cool.
And so they're pretty cool. So if you have some space in your life, I highly recommend it. Get to know Christian. Even David was like, "Hey, that kid you keep your eye on him, right? He's good." I was like, "He's good." So if you're looking for an American in MotoGP to follow, they pulled from the Rookie Cup. Pedro Acosta was the last person that came out of the Red Bull Rookie Cup into MotoGP. So keep your eye on it. There's a lot of good riders there. A lot of future MotoGP coming out of the Rookie Cup. So Christian was just sweet guy. So, same thing with Cart. I'm sure they're guys. They're like, don't call me sweet. But anyway, nice gentlemen. It was kind of fun to chat with them. And what I thought was interesting too is when you see somebody at that age, like the skill of like a Marc Marquez and the PR side of it is that the question you're asking him, 700 other people have asked him, but you never feel that way, right? Like Mark is like, well, Todd, that's a great question.
Yeah, right.
Nobody's ever asked me that before, and I'm so glad, right? Like, and so you kind of get to see where they're getting into that kind of like, I've been asked this question, but I need to engage with you so that you feel like I've never heard this before.
Right.
And so it was kind of interesting to see, that's where everybody starts at 16, and that, sure, when they're in their 30s, they will also sound like Marc Marquez, and but they really know their sport, and it was really kind of fun to talk about their different experiences living now in Europe full time, like one has to.
That's cool.
So I highly recommend MotoGP Rookie Cup. Check that out, Red Bull Rookie Cup, and they had a race in Le Mans. They raced in Le Mans as well. So one race they did well, the other race they DNF'd. So that has its ups and its downs. And I also did, we did talk a little bit about, my new favorite, Johann Zarco, who 2 years in a row, we happened to meet in Austin. We met him again. And so it was pretty cool. And, if you got nothing to do, go back, watch the race. I haven't gone back and watched her ref yet to see if we're on TV like we did with Austin. I'm sure we're there somewhere. I just have to pour over the footage to see if we can find ourselves and were we there on the straight. But I highly recommend it. Her ref delivered. It was exciting. It was fun. The fans were great. It was fun to walk around as always, to just be with the people. And the general admission was great. We didn't sit in general admission, but you could. If you were willing to sit outside in the sun all day, the general admission was really, really pretty good. So I highly recommend it.
Cool.
We'll see.
Excellent.
Where adventures take us next.
All right. I got a couple of no shit headlines.
All right.
The first one is Christian Horner on verge of being sacked by Red Bull as 2 replacements discussed. This has been all the talking point on social media today.
I didn't know that Audi was also looking for yet another person to work at their team. We'll get Jonathan Wheatley and Christian Horner back together again.
Maybe they're making room over there, getting rid of that Adam guy. They're making room for Christian.
Restructuring.
Yeah, this is. I haven't seen any legitimate. I haven't seen any legitimate articles on it yet, and I'm not saying there aren't any. I just haven't seen them. But this was all the rumors in the social media, and this article says that the 2 people they're considering are Ollie Oakes. Oh.
Well, he's free now.
Yeah, barely. He's free. And that would be a personal reason to leave, but I'm sure he's got a non-compete clause. Or Franz Toast, of all people. That they would go and reheat that.
That is the opposite person.
I know. Could you pick somebody more?
Franz Toast, Christian Horner.
I know.
Really?
I know. I cannot imagine
that would be hilarious.
Reheating Franz Toast for another go at the head of Red Bull. I don't know.
Yuki would do well. I think that would be good for Yuki,
right.
But I just think that
it's such a weird.
Really?
That would be such a weird deal.
That is a strange.
Yeah. Come to find out, Helmut's trying to raise his Flavio game. Get rid of Christian, then Helmut will just take over like Flavio's doing.
Right? But what an odd kind of deal going on there, right?
Yeah, that's weird. I don't know.
Well, Netflix, if that really happened, which for sure it's not, but if Franz Toast really was going to take over Christian Horner's position at Red Bull, Netflix this season.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't need to see what the other teams are doing and drive to survive.
Just stay there. I know. Yeah, I haven't, like I said, I haven't seen anything with credible information, but anything can happen. But boy, that would be stunning.
Especially at Red Bull.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be.
Let's see. Other notes. Max Verstappen uses fake name to drive in Ferrari test as Red Bull star's secret gets out.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes, he drove a Ferrari 296 GT car around the Nürburgring under the pseudonym of Franz Hermann. So he used a fake name so he could get in there and try to do it sort of unseen, but he's been outed.
He's Kimi Räikkönen?
Yeah.
Of course, people know what he looks like, right?
Yeah, you're going to see him.
As soon as he shows up, they're going to be like, you're not Franz Hermann.
I know Franz Hermann. You're no Franz Hermann.
That's not you.
That's not
sir.
you.
You're no Franz Hermann.
Why, you look like Max Verstappen. Yes.
Exactly.
And then the final one is the real inside story of how McLaren snatched Oscar Piastri from Alpine. A brutal battle, an American with his pants down, and a future world champion revealed for the first time. I like the whole an American with his pants down. So that means something different in the British press than it does to us. Because for us, pants means like the trousers. Over there, it means like underwear off, right?
Underwear.
Yeah. So I like the idea of Otmar Safnauer with his underwear off. That's a very humorous mental image I don't want to see. Don't Google that.
Don't stop this. Don't Google that.
Yeah.
Especially if you did Google the mankini. Don't. Your algorithm is hosed. Don't do that.
Yeah. And I don't know what it says. I didn't read the article, but there you go.
Maybe Otmar Safnauer should go to Audi.
There you go. Or back to Alpine. Get the band back together.
Flavio's there. No, my goodness.
Maybe Flavio will hire Pat Simmons back, and then they'll totally get the band back together. That'd be great.
I think that would be great.
Wouldn't it?
What full circle this.
Who had the
I love
last
that
laugh
idea.
now? You banned both of us, and both of us are back running Renault.
And we're back,
Yes.
baby. That's right.
Yes.
I think that would be a mockery of the sport if I've ever heard one.
Right.
And I'm all for that.
Then they could hire Junior, and they'd
That
be
would be
off to the races.
Oh, my
Okay,
goodness.
well, that does it for this podcast. But hey, if you like this podcast, go to your favorite podcast player and give us some love. Give us a nice rating over there. That would be much appreciated. I have some new merch out there, and Grace is wearing one of them. Oh, yes, I've got the
There you
new
go.
logo, new merch,
We got some sweatshirts.
got sweatshirts, and they're good. They're thick. They're heavy sweatshirts.
They're very nice.
Yeah,
Very nice quality.
yeah,
It's a good winter
yeah.
sweatshirt.
Notice it has the logo on the front and the left arm of Grace's T-shirt there.
Oh, yeah, the shirt.
Yeah, see, representing. You got that right there.
Has it on the front and the back.
Yeah, got it on the back there. See, yeah. So for those of you listening, sorry you can't see this, but on the YouTube version of this, you can see the merch. But anyway,
I guess if you want to see me modeling our own merch. But
I did some.
90%.
I was just going to say I did some new shirts too, just this past week of
Yes.
different races, so you can see those too. But anyway, so you can pick up some merch.
90% of my wardrobe.
Yes, is the part for me.
now, like,
I love it.
Park for Mary.
I love it. So you can do that. And a huge thank you to our Patreon supporters because could not and would not do this podcast without you. So thank you so much for your support. It means the world to us. And then I think Paul and I will be back for a triple header
Yes.
if Paul can make it. You know, he's a busy boy. But anyway, we'll be back for a triple header starting, Grace, with Imola.
Yes.
Woo. So we'll start with Imola, see how that goes.
Yeah, and will be great.
Yeah. Well, it's just not going to be the same without Jack
Dominating.
doing it. I'm just going to say it right now, right up front. Anyway, we'll be back.
I don't know.
I know. Poor Jack.
We'll see.
Poor Jack.
I love Jack
do.
too. I mean,
Poor Jack. I like Franco too. Franco's cool. All right. Until next week when we do it all over again, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camera, saying so long, Grace.
see you in 4 weeks.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
I don't feel I've got to prove at all. I don't really want to prove anything. I started as an amateur with no idea or no intention of becoming world champion. I was curious to find out